I should have known. The universe has a funny way of kicking you when you're down, and an even crueler way of showing you that you were never even standing up in the first place. My name is Leo, and my story, or at least this part of it, begins with a tub of strawberry swirl ice cream. It was Mia's favorite. For 3 years, I had orbited her like a nameless moon, content just to be in her gravitational pull. She was the student council president, the lead in the school play, the sunbeam in a dreary hallway. And I was just Leo. The guy who sat 2 rows behind her in calculus, who memorized her coffee order, who knew she bit her lip when she was concentrating. Today was the day I was going to break orbit. I had saved up for weeks, working extra shifts at the convenience store, to buy the necklace I knew she wanted. It wasn't much, a simple silver chain with a small star pendant, but it was everything to me. I clutched the small, velvet box in one hand and the rapidly melting tub of ice cream in the other. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I saw her up ahead, turning the corner onto the street famous for its trendy cafes and quiet spots. My breath hitched. She was laughing, her head thrown back, her smile as radiant as ever. But she wasn't alone. Walking beside her, with his arms slung casually around her shoulders, was Mark. Mark. Of course, it was Mark. He was the antithesis of me in every conceivable way. His family owned half the city, his car was worth more than my entire family's apartment, and his favorite pastime was reminding me of my place in the world. Somewhere beneath the heel of his expensive shoe. A cold dread, colder than the ice cream in my hand, washed over me. Maybe they were just friends. My mind scrambled for a plausible explanation, a lifeline to cling to. But my hope evaporated when they stopped, not in front of a cafe, but in front of the Starlight Inn. It wasn't a fancy hotel. It was a love hotel. The kind with hourly rates and discreet entrances. Mark leaned in and whispered something in her ear. Mia giggled, a sound that had once been music to me, but now felt like nails on a chalkboard. She gave him a playful shove and then, together, they walked inside. The neon sign of the hotel blinked mockingly. The world went silent. The bustling street, the chatter of people, the distant traffic, it all faded into a dull hum. The only thing I could feel was the condensation from the ice cream tub making my hand numb. I don't know how long I stood there. An hour? Maybe more. Long enough for the ice cream to turn into a lukewarm, sugary soup. Long enough for every happy memory I had of Mia to curdle and turn sour. Then, they came out. They looked pleased, flushed, and utterly oblivious to the shattered remnants of my world standing just a few feet away. Something inside me snapped. The timid, quiet Leo was gone, replaced by a hollow shell filled with a roaring fire. I stepped in front of them. Mia? My voice was raspy, unfamiliar even to me. She looked startled, her eyes widening in recognition before quickly schooling into an expression of annoyance. Leo? What are you doing here? Mark smirked, his eyes filled with the familiar, contemptuous amusement he always reserved for me. Look what the cat dragged in. Stalking now, are we? I ignored him, my eyes locked on Mia. I came to see you. I got you this. My hand trembled as I held out the soupy, pathetic tub of ice cream. Mia's face twisted into a look of disgust. Ice cream? Seriously? What am I, 12? It's your favorite, I whispered, the words feeling like ash in my mouth. Strawberry swirl. Mark let out a loud, barking laugh. Strawberry swirl. Oh, this is priceless. Dude, she's had a taste of champagne tonight. You think she wants your cheap sugar water? He snatched the tub from my hand and peered inside. It's melted. Just like your chances. With a flick of his wrist, he upended the tub. The pinkish liquid splattered all over my shoes and the pavement, a sticky, humiliating mess. My gaze fell to the ground, to the ruined offering. And that's when I dropped the velvet box. It landed with a soft thud, popping open to reveal the small, silver star. Mia's eyes flickered to it. For a second, a flicker of something, guilt? Surprise, crossed her face. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by cold indifference. Mark bent down, picked up the box, and dangled the necklace from his finger. Ah, look at this. Did you get this from a gumball machine? How much did this set you back, buddy? A whole day's wages? He tossed it back at me. It hit my chest and fell to the ground, next to the sticky puddle. Listen, Leo, Mia said, her voice sharp and cutting. I don't know what fantasy you've been living in, but it's time to wake up. We were never going to happen. Look at you. And look at Mark. It's not a hard choice. Every word was a hammer blow, cracking the foundations of my self-worth. Get a clue, Mark sneered, stepping closer until he was invading my personal space. She needs a man, not a charity case. Now, get lost before you embarrass yourself even more. He shoved me, hard. I stumbled backward, tripping over the curb and landing hard on the pavement. The laughter of passers-by was a new layer of hell. They walked away, their own laughter echoing the loudest, leaving me there. A broken boy with a broken heart, surrounded by melted ice cream and a cheap, tarnished star. I ended up on a park bench, the city lights blurring through the tears I refused to let fall. The world felt gray, washed out, as if all the color had been drained from it along with my dignity. My life was a joke, and I was the punchline. I had nothing. No confidence, no prospects, and now, not even a foolish dream to hold on to. The park was mostly empty, save for the occasional late-night jogger. Then I heard it, a soft sniffling sound from the other end of the bench. I turned to see a little boy, maybe 6 or 7 years old, sitting there. He was dressed in modern, slightly oversized clothes, a red hoodie and jeans, but there was something odd about him. His hair was tied in 2 small top knots, and he had a strange, golden ring around his neck that glinted under the park lights. He was crying, his small shoulders shaking. On the ground by his feet was a smashed bag of chips. His own little tragedy. Something about his desolate look resonated with the gaping void in my own chest. All my pain, my humiliation, my rage, it all melted away in that moment, replaced by a wave of pure, unadulterated empathy for this small, crying child. I reached into the plastic bag I still carried, the one that had held the ice cream. Miraculously, one of the small, sealed single-serving cups I had bought, a backup, just in case, had survived the fall. It was plain vanilla. Not strawberry swirl. But it was all I had left to give. I scooted closer. "Hey there," I said softly. The boy looked up, his eyes red-rimmed but startlingly intelligent. They seemed ancient, holding a depth that didn't belong in a child's face. "Don't cry," I said, offering him the small cup. "Here, you can have this." He stared at the ice cream, then at me. His crying stopped instantly. A slow, curious smile spread across his face. "For me?" "Yeah," I said, managing a weak smile of my own. "Go on." He took the cup, his small fingers brushing against mine. He opened it, took a spoonful, and his eyes lit up. He ate the entire thing in a few quick, enthusiastic bites. When he was done, he looked at me, his expression completely transformed. The childish sadness was gone, replaced by a sharp, knowing wisdom. "You are in great pain," he stated, his voice suddenly losing its childish lisp, becoming clear and resonant. "They crushed your heart and your pride." I blinked, startled. "How did you?" "I see many things," he said, hopping off the bench. He stood before me, and he seemed to be growing, not in size, but in presence. The air around him crackled with an unseen energy. "You, a mortal drowning in despair, showed kindness to a stranger. You gave away the last thing you had, even when you had nothing. That is a rare quality." My mind struggled to process what was happening. Who are you?" He grinned, a flash of mischief in his ancient eyes. "Some call me the Third Lotus Prince. Others know me as Marshal of the Central Altar. You can call me Nezha." Nezha. The name echoed from myths and legends I'd read as a kid. A powerful, rebellious protection deity. It couldn't be real. I was dreaming. Or I'd finally gone insane. "You're having a bad day," Nezha continued, ignoring my shock. "The worst day of your life, in fact. But every ending is a new beginning. Your kindness deserves a reward. A proper one." From the pocket of his red hoodie, he pulled out not a toy or a phone, but a shimmering, golden pearl. It pulsed with a soft, warm light, humming with an energy that made the hairs on my arm stand up. It was the most beautiful and terrifying thing I had ever seen. "What is that?" I breathed. "This," he said, his voice filled with a cosmic gravity, "is a divine dragon vein pearl. Forged from the very essence of a celestial dragon's life force. It contains a sliver of creation's power." My mind reeled. This was impossible. A gift of this magnitude requires a vessel of immense fortitude, Nezha explained, his eyes glinting. Or, in your case, it will simply have to make do. It will either grant you power beyond your wildest dreams or tear your mortal body apart. Exciting, isn't it? Before I could protest, before I could even form a coherent thought, he moved with impossible speed. His hand shot out, his fingers prying my jaw open. He pushed the pearl into my mouth. I gagged, trying to spit it out, but he clamped my mouth shut. Swallow, he commanded, his voice echoing with divine authority. I had no choice. I swallowed. The pearl slid down my throat, a sphere of heat and light. The instant it reached my stomach, it felt like a star had gone supernova inside me. An agonizing, searing pain erupted through every cell of my being. I screamed, collapsing off the bench and onto the grass, my body convulsing. Golden light poured from my eyes, my mouth, the pores of my skin. It felt like I was being ripped apart and put back together, atom by atom. My bones felt like they were melting and re-forging into something harder than steel. My muscles tore and stitched themselves into new, more powerful fibers. Through the blinding agony, I could hear Nezha's voice, calm and amused. The dragon vein is merging with your soul. It is rewriting your existence. You will no longer see the world as a human. You will see the truth. The energy. The flow of fate itself. Try not to die. The pain intensified, a roaring inferno in my soul. I thought of Mark's sneer. I thought of Mia's cold dismissal. I thought of the melted ice cream on the pavement. And a new feeling began to mix with the pain. Rage. A cold, pure, draconic rage. And a desire. Not for Mia. Not for what I had lost. But for retribution. The golden light surged, coalescing with that rage, and then, the pain began to subside. It was replaced by a feeling of incredible, limitless power. I lay on the grass, panting, my body drenched in sweat but humming with a strange new energy. I slowly pushed myself up. My hands, they looked the same, but they felt different. I could feel the life in the blades of grass beneath my palms. I could feel the hum of the electrical grid beneath the city. I could feel the faint, sorrowful energy of a wilted flower 20 feet away. I looked up at Nezha, who was watching me with a satisfied smirk. Congratulations, he said. You survived. The fun part begins now. I blinked, and the world exploded into a kaleidoscope of colors and light that hadn't been there before. Every person, every object, was now surrounded by a shimmering, colored aura. The trees glowed with a gentle, green life force. A distant couple walking their dog glowed with a soft, warm pink of affection. And Nezha blazed with an energy so intense, so powerful, it was like looking into the heart of a sun. It was a swirling vortex of fiery red, divine gold, and mischievous lotus pink. What is this? I stammered, raising my hands to my eyes. Celestial aura perception, Nezha explained casually, as if discussing the weather. You see the energy of all things. Their nature, their potential, their luck. That man over there, he pointed to a jogger, his aura is a steady blue. He is content, but his potential is capped. That woman on the phone, her aura is a murky, greedy brown. She is consumed by materialism. He then gestured in the direction of the city. And the ones who hurt you? If you saw them now, you would see auras of arrogant gold built on a foundation of rotten black. My mind raced, trying to comprehend the sheer volume of new information flooding my senses. It was overwhelming, but underneath the chaos, I felt a thrill. This was a weapon. A tool. This is not all, Nezha added, tapping his chin. The dragon vein is part of you now. You can draw upon its power. Try to punch that tree. I looked at the old oak tree nearby. It was thick, ancient. I'll break my hand, I said. You won't, Nezha replied with a grin. Just focus on the power humming in your chest. Let it flow into your fist. Hesitantly, I stood up. My body felt light, powerful. I focused on the warm energy that now resided where the searing pain had been. I felt it surge from my core, down my arm, and into my fist. My knuckles began to glow with a faint, golden light. I took a breath and swung. I wasn't aiming to hit it hard, more to test the feeling. But my fist moved with a speed that blurred, closing the distance to the tree in an instant. There was no jarring impact. No pain. My fist sank into the thick trunk as if it were wet clay. Crack. A spiderweb of fissures erupted from the point of impact, spreading across the bark. I pulled my hand back, leaving a perfectly formed fist-sized crater in the ancient wood. I stared at my knuckles. Not a scratch. Not a single red mark. Dragon's might, Nezha said, looking pleased. Superhuman strength, speed, durability. Your senses are also heightened. Listen. I closed my eyes and focused. The dull hum of the city became a symphony of distinct sounds. I could hear a conversation happening a block away. I could hear the flutter of a moth's wings 10 feet from me. I could hear the frantic heartbeat of a mouse hiding in a bush across the park. And finally, Nezha said, his tone becoming more serious, essence manipulation. This is the most versatile of your gifts. You can absorb and control energy. Negative emotions, kinetic force, ambient life energy. It's all just fuel for you now. He picked up a small rock and tossed it at me. Instinctively, I put my hand up to block it. But instead of bouncing off, the rock stopped dead in the air an inch from my palm, its kinetic energy flowing into me like a warm current. I felt a slight jolt, a pleasant little buzz of absorbed power. The rock then dropped harmlessly to the ground. I stared at my palm, then at Nezha, my mind officially blown. This was real. All of it. Mia's betrayal, Mark's humiliation, it felt like it had happened a lifetime ago, to a different person. The old Leo was gone. Burned away by the dragon's fire. A new Leo stood in his place, armed with the power of a god. So, Nezha said, his form beginning to shimmer, becoming slightly transparent. I have given you the tools. What you build or destroy with them is up to you. I'll be watching. Don't be boring. Wait, I called out. How can I thank you? Nezha winked, his form fading rapidly. You already did. Enjoy the vanilla. And just like that, he was gone. I was alone again in the park, but the world was no longer gray. It was a vibrant, pulsating tapestry of energy. My rage against Mark and Mia hadn't vanished. Oh no. It had been refined. It was no longer the hot, desperate anger of a victim. It was the cold, patient, calculating fury of a predator. They thought they had crushed a bug. They had no idea they had just handed a dragon a reason to burn their world to the ground. My first act was simple. I walked back to the scene of my humiliation. The sticky puddle of melted ice cream was still there. The cheap necklace lay beside it, looking pathetic under the streetlights. I bent down and picked it up. Using my new sight, I could see the shoddy craftsmanship, the cheap metal alloy glowing with a dull, leaden aura. But I also saw a flicker of potential. Focusing, I let a sliver of the dragon's energy flow from my fingertips into the necklace. The dull metal began to glow with a warm, golden light. The silver plating seemed to thicken, to purify, becoming something that looked and felt like pure, flawless platinum. The cheap glass star at its center began to refract the light, its facets shifting and reforming until it glittered with the fire of a perfect diamond. It was no longer a piece of junk. It was a masterpiece, a symbol. I wouldn't throw it away. I wouldn't sell it. I would keep it. I would keep it as a reminder of the boy I was, and the man I was about to become. And one day, when I had taken everything from them, I would show it to Mia. Not as a gift, but as proof of the priceless treasure she had so carelessly thrown away. I put the transformed necklace in my pocket and walked away, not looking back. The first step of my retribution had been taken. I didn't go home. My tiny apartment, shared with my family, felt too small to contain the power thrumming inside me. Instead, I walked the city streets all night. I was a ghost, an observer, learning to master my new senses. I saw the city's true face. I saw the desperate gray auras of the homeless, the predatory crimson of muggers in dark alleys, the false, shimmering gold of politicians on billboards, and the frantic, anxious green of stockbrokers working late. I saw threads of fate connecting people, some bright and strong, others frayed and tangled. It was a fire hose of information, but the dragon vein in my soul helped me process it, categorize it, understand it. By dawn, I was no longer overwhelmed. I was in control. I knew what I had to do first. Revenge was a dish best served cold, but it required capital. Mark's power came from his family's wealth. To crush him, I needed to build my own. And my new sight gave me the ultimate cheat code. My first stop was not a bank or an office, but the most rundown, forgotten arcade in the city. It was a dusty, dimly lit place that smelled of stale popcorn and ozone. The machines were old, relics from a bygone era. But to my new eyes, they were a goldmine. I walked past the faded racing games and the clunky fighting cabinets. I was looking for something specific. The claw machines. To a normal person, they were games of chance, heavily rigged in favor of the house. To me, they were simple puzzles of physics and energy. I could see the precise tension in each claw's grip. I could see the subtle imbalances in the weight of the plush toys. I could see the faint aura of luck that clung to certain drop zones in the machine, moments where the programming and physics would align perfectly. I approached the first machine, filled with cheap, generic teddy bears. I fed a single token into the slot. I wasn't just watching the claw, I was feeling the machine's energy. I guided the claw, my movements precise and economical. I positioned it over a bear that had a slightly more stable energetic signature than the others. I pressed the button. The claw descended, and I focused, subtly manipulating the kinetic energy around the prize. Not enough to be noticed, just a tiny nudge to secure the grip. The claw closed, lifted the bear, moved, and dropped it perfectly into the chute. One token, one prize. I moved to the next machine. And the next. Within an hour, I had emptied every single claw machine in the arcade. A mountain of plush toys lay at my feet. The owner, a grizzled old man who had been watching me with growing disbelief, finally came over. His aura was a tired, faded gray, but with a surprising thread of honest blue. "Kid," he said, scratching his head. "I've been running this place for 30 years. I've never seen anything like that. How'd you do it?" I just smiled. "I'm just lucky, I guess." I could see the faint glow of value on some of the rarer, vintage plushies. "I'll sell them all back to you for half their ticket value. Except these 5. I picked out the ones that had the strongest auras of latent value. The owner, seeing a chance to restock his entire inventory for a bargain, readily agreed. I walked out of the arcade with a thick wad of cash in my pocket and 5 rare plush toys in a bag. It wasn't a fortune, but it was a start. More importantly, it was proof of concept. My next stop was a pawn shop in a seedier part of town. My aura perception cut through the clutter of junk and false treasures. I saw a dusty old violin with a faint, melodic blue aura. The owner thought it was a cheap replica. I could see the master craftsman's signature hidden under a layer of grime. I saw a box of old, tarnished silverware glowing with the pure, silver light of its true composition. I used the cash from the arcade to buy these hidden gems for a pittance. My plan was forming. I wasn't just going to get rich. I was going to become a connoisseur of value, a master of seeing what others could not. Over the next few days, I became a phantom in the city's underbelly of trade and commerce. I visited flea markets, antique stores, and auction houses. I bought undervalued art, rare first edition books, and forgotten historical artifacts, all identified by their unique auras. I learned to clean and restore my purchases, using my enhanced senses to guide my hands with surgical precision. Then I would sell them to collectors and specialty dealers for 10, 50, 100 times what I paid. My small wad of cash grew exponentially. Within a week, I had amassed a small fortune, enough to move out of my family's cramped apartment and into a modest, clean place of my own. I told my family I'd landed a high-paying job as a consultant for an antique dealer. It wasn't entirely a lie. The freedom was intoxicating. But with every dollar I made, the cold fire of my purpose burned brighter. It was time to move from scavenging to building. I started researching, not just stocks and real estate, but people. I used my aura perception to scan business news, social media feeds, and financial reports. I could see the truth behind the corporate lies. I saw which companies had auras of genuine innovation and which were just hollow shells propped up by hype. I saw which CEOs glowed with integrity and which were rotting from the inside with greed and corruption. And that's when I found her. Her name was Clara. I saw her picture in a small online tech article about a programming competition she had won. Even through the digital image, her aura was breathtaking. It was a brilliant, intricate lattice of pure intellectual blue and creative violet, pulsing with an energy that dwarfed everyone else on the page. She was a genius. A true, unadulterated genius. The article mentioned her small startup, Nexus Innovations, which was developing a revolutionary new data compression algorithm. I dug deeper. Nexus Innovations was failing. They were running out of funding, being stonewalled by larger tech firms who wanted to steal her work. I saw an interview with her. She looked tired, stressed, but her eyes held a fire of determination. Her aura was tinged with the gray of despair, but the brilliant blue and violet core remained untarnished. And then I saw the connection. The primary company trying to crush her, a corporate behemoth called Omnicorp, had a familiar name on its board of directors. Mark's family. Omnicorp was one of their flagship investments. The threads of fate were weaving themselves into a beautiful, vengeful tapestry. Hoping Clara wouldn't just be a good investment. It would be my first real strike against Mark's empire. I found the address of Nexus Innovations. It was in a small, rented office space above a laundromat. I put on the nicest suit I owned, bought with my recent earnings, and walked in. The office was sparse, just a few desks with powerful computers, whiteboards covered in complex equations, and a distinct smell of burnt coffee and sleepless nights. Clara was at the main whiteboard, her back to me. She was arguing with a man in a cheap suit, whose aura was a muddy brown of greed and impatience. "The offer is final, Clara," the suit said. 50,000 for the whole algorithm. Take it, or we walk, and you're bankrupt in a month. Clara's shoulders were tense. "It's worth 100 times that, and you know it. This is theft. It's business," the suit sneered. "You have until tomorrow." He turned and walked out, brushing past me without a glance. Clara slumped against the whiteboard, her head in her hands. The gray aura of despair around her intensified. I cleared my throat. "He's wrong." She spun around, startled. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, and wary. "Who are you?" "My name is Leo," I said, stepping forward. "And your algorithm is worth 1,000 times what he offered." I looked at the equations on the board. To the old me, they would have been gibberish. But with the dragon veins enhanced intellect, I could see the elegance, the sheer brilliance of her design. I could see the flow of logic like a river of light. "Your recursive function is inefficient in the third quadrant," I said, pointing to a section of the code. "If you invert the data stream and apply a parallel processing filter before the primary compression, you'll increase efficiency by at least 40%. Clara stared at me, her jaw slightly agape. Her brilliant blue and violet aura flared, swirling with shock and curiosity. How could you possibly know that?" she whispered. I smiled. "I see value where others don't. In antiques, in companies, and in people." I walked to her desk and placed a cashier's check on it. It was for $500,000. Almost everything I had. "I'm not here to buy your algorithm," I said, my voice steady. "I'm here to invest in your company. I want to be your partner. Together, we are going to change the world. And we're going to start by burying Omnicorp." Her eyes flicked from the check to my face, searching for the catch. She saw none. With my aura perception, I saw the exact moment her despair was replaced by a blazing nova of hope. Clara didn't say yes immediately. She was too smart for that. Her mind, which I could almost see working through the vibrant pulses of her aura, was running 1,000 calculations a second. "No one just walks in and offers $500,000, she said, her arms crossed. Her stance was defensive, but her eyes were full of a desperate hope. "Who are you really, Leo?" "I'm a private investor," I said calmly. "I made my money recognizing undervalued assets. And you, Clara, are the most undervalued asset in this entire city." I met her gaze, letting her see the sincerity in my eyes. I didn't need to fake it. With my new sight, I knew with absolute certainty that she was a winning bet. "Look at my offer," I continued. "It's not for a controlling stake. I'm proposing a 40% partnership. You remain the CEO. You retain creative control. I provide the capital and handle the business end of things. The things that are distracting you from your real work." I gestured to the whiteboards. "That is where you belong. Not arguing with vultures in cheap suits." Her aura softened, the wary shields lowering slightly as a soft pink of appreciation mingled with her intellectual blue. "Why do you want to bury Omnicorp?" she asked, her voice quiet. "This is personal for you, isn't it?" The image of Mark's sneering face flashed in my mind. The cold fury returned, but I kept my expression neutral. Let's just say they have a business philosophy I find distasteful, I replied smoothly. They prey on the brilliant and the vulnerable. I prefer to empower them. I could see the threads of fate. Our partnership was a bright, golden cord of immense potential. Rejecting it would lead her down a path of grave failure. She must have sensed it too, on some level. She finally picked up the check, her fingers tracing the numbers. Okay, Leo, she said, a slow, brilliant smile spreading across her face. It transformed her tired features, making her beautiful. Let's build an empire. That was the beginning. Our partnership was electric. With the funding secured, Clara was unleashed. She and her small team worked with a renewed, ferocious passion. I took over the business operations. My first move was to use my newfound wealth and perception to lease a new office. A real one. It was in a new, high-tech building, with gleaming glass walls and state-of-the-art security. The look on Clara's face when she saw it was worth more than the cost of the lease. I handled the patents, the legal framework, the corporate structuring. My enhanced mind absorbed contract law and financial regulations with ease. My aura perception allowed me to see the traps and loopholes in any document. I hired a legal team, not just based on their resumes, but on the clear, sharp integrity of their auras. Meanwhile, OmniCorp and Mark's family didn't stay idle. They saw our sudden funding and new office as a threat. They began a campaign of corporate sabotage. They tried to poach Clara's engineers, offering them exorbitant salaries. I saw the greedy brown auras of the OmniCorp recruiters approaching my team. But I had already fostered a culture of loyalty. I paid my people well, but more than that, I showed them respect. I used my perception to understand their needs, their ambitions. I created an environment where they could do their best work. None of them left. Next, OmniCorp launched a smear campaign, planting articles that called our technology vaporware. I countered by arranging a live, public demonstration. We rented a small auditorium. I invited tech journalists, industry analysts, and potential investors. I specifically made sure an invitation reached Mark's family. I wanted them to have a front row seat to their own demise. Before the presentation, I found Clara pacing nervously backstage. Her aura was a storm of anxious gray. I can't do this, Leo, she stuttered. What if it fails? What if they're right? I placed my hands gently on her shoulders. I focused, not on giving her my energy, but on absorbing the negative cloud around her. I drew her anxiety, her fear, her stress into myself. The dragon vein essence in my core consumed it effortlessly, converting the chaotic gray energy into pure, neutral power. It was like siphoning poison from a wound. Her shoulders relaxed. Her breathing deepened. The brilliant blue and violet of her aura returned, clear and strong. She looked at me, her eyes wide with surprise. I suddenly feel calm. It's because you're ready, I said with a confident smile. You've built something incredible. Now go and show them. She gave me a grateful, searching look before walking onto the stage. And she was magnificent. She didn't just explain her algorithm, she made the audience understand its beauty, its elegance. For the finale, she performed a live compression of a massive data file, the entire digital library of the city's university, in seconds. The compressed file was a fraction of its original size, with zero data loss. The auditorium was silent for a moment, then erupted into thunderous applause. I watched from the wings, a quiet sense of triumph building inside me. In the crowd, I could see the auras of the OmniCorp executives. They were a putrid, swirling green of envy and panic. I could almost taste their fear. It was delicious. After the demo, our company, Nexus Innovations, became the talk of the tech world. Investment offers poured in. Partnership requests from major companies flooded our inbox. We were no longer the underdogs. We were the new standard. One evening, we were working late, finalizing a major licensing deal that would make us both incredibly wealthy. We were the only two left in the vast, quiet office. We did it, Leo, Clara said, leaning back in her chair and looking out at the glittering city lights. We really did it. Her aura was a contented, glowing mix of blue, violet, and a soft, warm pink that was directed entirely at me. No, I said, turning to face her. You did it. I just cleared the path for you. You did more than that, she said softly. You believed in me when I was starting to doubt myself. You saw something in me that no one else did. She stood up and walked over to me, stopping just a few inches away. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why me?" I looked into her intelligent, searching eyes. "Because your light was too bright to be left in the dark," I said, my voice equally quiet. The space between us crackled with an energy that had nothing to do with technology. She leaned in, and I met her halfway. The kiss was gentle at first, then deepened, filled with months of shared struggle, intellectual respect, and growing affection. It wasn't a moment of wild passion, but of deep, profound connection. A partnership forged in code and sealed with a kiss. When we broke apart, she rested her head on my chest. "I think I'm falling in love with you, Leo," she murmured. "The feeling is mutual, Clara," I replied, stroking her hair. In that moment, holding her, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt since before my world fell apart. Revenge was still my goal. But for the first time, I realized I wasn't just destroying Mark's world. I was building my own. And it was going to be infinitely better. My war with Mark's family was just beginning, however. They wouldn't take this loss lying down. They had pushed a brilliant mind to the brink of failure. Now, that mind had a god on her side. The success of Nexus Innovations sent shockwaves through the tech industry, and a tsunami of panic straight into the boardrooms of OmniCorp. Our algorithm was so superior that their own products became obsolete overnight. Their stock price began to plummet. Mark's family, who held a controlling interest, was hemorrhaging money. I watched the financial news with a cold sense of satisfaction. Every percentage point they dropped was a small measure of revenge. But I knew this was just the first battle. To truly crush Mark, I needed to dismantle his entire power structure, not just one pillar of it. His power wasn't just in money, it was in his reputation, his social standing. He was known as a tough guy, an alpha, a winner. I needed to shatter that image. My new opportunity came from an unexpected place, the world of combat sports. Through my nightly scans of the city's energy, I kept noticing a bright, fierce, burning orange aura in a rundown part of town. It was an aura of pure, unyielding fighting spirit, but it was tinged with the dark red of frustration and the gray of financial hardship. Curiosity piqued, I followed the energy signature one evening. It led me to a small, old-school dojo called Iron Fist Academy. The place had seen better days. The paint was peeling, the training equipment was worn, and there were only a handful of students practicing inside. At the center of it all, sparring with 2 students at once, was the source of the incredible aura. Her name, as I soon learned, was Alara. She moved with a fluid, brutal grace. Every kick, every punch, every block was precise and powerful. She was a master, her body a finely honed weapon. But her dojo was failing. I watched from the shadows as she finished the class. After her students left, she sat down heavily, her fierce aura dimming as she looked over a pile of overdue bills. The thread of fate was clear. She needed a patron, an investor. And I saw another thread, a darker one, connected to her dojo's troubles. The biggest, most successful MMA gym in the city, Viper Fitness, was systematically driving smaller dojos out of business. They used predatory pricing and aggressive marketing, and their owner was a close associate of Mark's family. In fact, Mark himself trained there. I'd seen pictures of him on social media, posing with their top fighters, exuding his usual brand of smug arrogance. The path forward was obvious. The next day, I walked into Iron Fist Academy. Alara was hitting a heavy bag with enough force to make the whole building shake. She stopped as I entered, eyeing me with suspicion. Her fighter's intuition was sharp. "We're not accepting new students right now." Her aura was a wall of fiery orange, defensive and proud. "I'm not here to be a student," I said, my voice calm. "I'm here to make a proposition." "I'm not interested in selling," she said flatly, turning back to the bag. "I don't want to buy your dojo," I replied. "I want to invest in it. I want to make this place the #1 combat training center in the city." She stopped and turned to face me fully, a skeptical sneer on her lips. "With what? Good intentions? This place is drowning in debt. Viper Fitness is crushing us." "Viper Fitness is a brand," I said, walking further into the room. "You are a warrior. There's a difference." She laughed, a short, humorless sound. "Words don't pay the rent, pretty boy." I knew words wouldn't convince her. Her world was one of action and strength. I had to speak her language. "Let's make a deal," I said. Spar with me. 1 round. 3 minutes. If you can land a single clean strike on me, I'll walk away and never bother you again. If you can't, you hear out my business proposal." She looked me up and down, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. I was wearing a simple shirt and slacks. I wasn't bulky or overtly muscled. To her, I looked like an easy win. "You're serious?" she asked. Completely. The chance to vent her frustration on some arrogant rich kid was too good to pass up. "Fine," she said with a predatory grin. "Get some gear on. I don't want to be sued when I break something." "That won't be necessary," I said, taking off my jacket. We stood facing each other on the central mat. Alara settled into her fighting stance. Her orange aura flared, intense and focused. I simply stood there, relaxed, my hands at my sides. I wasn't going to use my full dragon's might. That would be too much. Instead, I would rely on my enhanced senses and my ability to absorb kinetic energy. "Ready?" she asked. I nodded. She exploded into motion. She was incredibly fast, her fist a blur aimed at my face. To my old self, the punch would have been unavoidable. To my new senses, it was moving through molasses. I saw the muscles in her shoulder tense. I saw the trajectory of her fist. I felt the displacement of air as it moved toward me. I leaned my head back, just enough for the punch to skim past my cheek, not even ruffling my hair. Her eyes widened in surprise, but she didn't stop. She flowed seamlessly into a spinning kick aimed at my ribs. I took a small step back, the kick whistling through the air where I had just been. She unleashed a flurry of attacks, jabs, crosses, hooks, kicks. Each one was powerful and precise. And I simply moved. I didn't block. I didn't counter. I just swayed, dipped, and stepped, avoiding every single strike by the barest of margins. It was a dance. Her ferocious assault against my effortless evasion. The other people in the dojo, her few remaining senior students, had stopped their own training to watch, their mouths agape. Alara was getting frustrated. Her breathing grew heavier. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Her aura was a storm of confusion and disbelief. How could this nobody be doing this? With 30 seconds left in the round, she let out a frustrated yell and lunge, putting all her power into a final, desperate haymaker. This time, I didn't dodge. I let her see it coming. I raised my open palm. Her fist connected with my hand. Thud. There was no impact. No recoil. The entire kinetic force of her punch, a blow that could shatter concrete, flowed into my palm and was instantly absorbed by the dragon vein. I felt a pleasant warmth spread through my arm. She stumbled back, her eyes wide with shock, staring at her fist and then at my impassive face. She had hit me with everything she had, and it felt like she had punched a cloud. The bell signaling the end of the round rang. Silence filled the dojo. "How?" she whispered, her voice filled with awe and disbelief. "What are you?" "I'm your new business partner," I said, lowering my hand. "Now, about that proposal. I didn't just give her money. I used my aura perception to find the flaws in her business. I identified the hidden structural weaknesses in the Viper Fitness building, which I anonymously reported to the city's safety commission. Their gym was shut down for a month for emergency repairs, right during peak registration season. I used my resources from Nexus Innovations to launch a targeted marketing campaign for Iron Fist Academy, highlighting Alara's authentic skill versus Viper's corporate gloss. I invested in new equipment, renovated the dojo, and set up a sponsorship program for promising young fighters from underprivileged backgrounds. Alara was skeptical at first, but she couldn't argue with the results. Students started pouring in. Her reputation began to grow. We spent a lot of time together, not just in business meetings, but in the dojo. She taught me the discipline and art of her fighting styles, and I, in turn, helped her refine her techniques, using my perception to point out microscopic inefficiencies in her movements. The sparring became our way of communicating. It was intimate, a conversation of movement and energy. One evening, after a particularly intense session, we were sitting on the mat, catching our breath. "You never told me how you do it," she said, looking at me. "The way you move. The way you just absorb my hits. It's a secret," I said with a small smile. "I hate secrets," she replied, but there was no heat in her words. She leaned her head on my shoulder, her fiery aura softening into a warm, trusting glow. "Thank you, Leo. You didn't just save my dojo. You saved me. A warrior like you should never have to worry about rent, I said. The atmosphere was charged, much like my first kiss with Clara. But this was different. It wasn't intellectual, it was primal. She turned her head, her lips finding mine. Her kiss was not gentle. It was strong, confident, and full of the same fiery passion she brought to her fighting. I returned it with equal intensity, my hand tangling in her sweaty hair. It was a confirmation of our bond, a fusion of her strength and my power. As I held her, I thought of Mark, preening in his now-closed gym. I had stolen his technological future with Clara. Now, I was stealing his reputation for strength with Alara. I had two queens in my corner now. A queen of intellect, and a queen of combat. My empire was growing, and my revenge was getting closer. I could feel it. With Nexus Innovations thriving and Iron Fist Academy becoming a dominant force, the foundations of Mark's world were cracking. His family's wealth, tied so heavily to OmniCorp, was diminishing. His reputation as a tough guy was being challenged by the meteoric rise of Alara's gym, a place he now wouldn't dare set foot in. But revenge, for me, was a multifaceted art form. I needed to attack his social standing, the very fabric of the high society he and Mia so arrogantly inhabited. This led me to the world of arts and culture, a playground for the rich where reputations are made and broken with whispers and applause. My nightly energy scans of the city revealed a new point of interest. It was an aura of such pure, heartbreakingly beautiful music that it stood out like a beacon. It was a swirling melody of silver and sky blue, tinged with the deep purple of sorrow and frustration. It came from a small, slightly rundown jazz club in the city's artistic quarter. I went there one night, dressed in a tailored suit that spoke of quiet wealth. The club was dimly lit, intimate. And on the small stage, under a single spotlight, was the source of the aura. A young woman named Serafina. She was playing a vintage electric piano and singing a song of such profound melancholy that the entire room was held in a state of captivated silence. Her voice was like liquid moonlight. Every note was perfect, filled with a raw, honest emotion that bypassed the ears and went straight to the soul. She was a prodigy, a once-in-a-generation talent. And yet, she was playing in this half-empty club for a handful of patrons. Her aura told the story. The beautiful silver and blue of her talent was being choked by a parasitic, greasy black aura of suppression and control. After her set, I watched as a slick, older man in an expensive suit approached her backstage. His aura was a nauseating mix of predatory crimson and deceitful gray. I didn't need to hear their conversation. I could read the energy. He was her producer. He was belittling her, controlling her, and taking credit for her work while simultaneously sabotaging any chance she had of real success. He wanted to keep her as his personal, hidden gem, exploiting her talent for his own small gains. As he walked away, leaving her looking defeated and hollow, I did some quick research on my phone. The producer's name was Julian Croft, and his production company was a subsidiary of a media group owned by, you guessed it, Mark's family. It was another thread in their web of influence. Another person of immense talent being crushed under their heel. The pattern was sickeningly familiar. I waited for Julian to leave the club. Then I walked backstage. Serafina was packing up her keyboard, her movements listless. "Your music," I said softly. "It's extraordinary." She looked up, startled. Her eyes were large and expressive, currently clouded with sadness. "Thank you. A talent like yours shouldn't be hidden in a place like this," I continued. A bitter, cynical smile touched her lips. "The world of music is complicated. It's only complicated when you're dealing with parasites," I said, my tone sharp. "Julian Croft is not a producer. He's a leech." Her eyes widened in shock. The name, spoken with such venom, clearly struck a chord. "How do you?" "I see things others don't," I said, my standard, cryptic reply. "I see his aura. It's black with deceit. He's blocking your path. He's probably shelving your best songs and feeding you scraps, telling you you're not ready for the big time." I was speaking her reality, and her shocked silence was my confirmation. "He's tied to a larger media group, isn't he?" I pressed. "One that has a vested interest in promoting their own, less talented but better connected artists?" I could see the gears turning in her head, the dawning realization that her long-held suspicions were true. The purple sorrow in her aura began to burn with the hot white of righteous anger. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I want to give your voice the stage it deserves," I said. "I want to watch you burn down the stage of those who held you back." Like with Clara and Alara, I didn't just throw money at the problem. I formulated a precise, surgical plan. First, I needed to free her from her contract with Julian. My legal team from Nexus, guided by my aura perception, analyzed her contract. It was, as expected, completely predatory. But they found a loophole. A tiny clause about artistic integrity that Julian, in his arrogance, had violated a dozen times over. While they prepared the legal challenge, I set the stage for her debut. I used my growing influence and capital to quietly back a rival record label, Starlight Records. It was a small, honest label with a reputation for prioritizing artists. Its owner had an aura of solid, dependable gold. Then, I arranged an opportunity. The city was holding its annual music festival, a huge event sponsored by none other than Mark's family's media group. The headline act was a vapid pop starlet they were heavily promoting. I used my connections to get Serafina a slot. Not on the main stage, but on a smaller, secondary stage, scheduled at an odd time. It was all Julian and his bosses would allow, thinking it was a meaningless gig. They underestimated me, and they had no idea of the power of Serafina's voice. The night of the festival, Serafina was a nervous wreck. "There'll be no one there, Leo," she said, wringing her hands backstage. They put me up against the main headliner. I took her hands in mine. Her aura was a flickering candle in a storm. "Do you remember what I told you?" I asked gently. I had been coaching her, not just musically, but mentally. "Don't sing for the crowd. Don't sing for the judges. Sing for yourself. Unleash everything you've kept locked inside. All the pain, all the frustration. Turn it into power." I focused my will, not absorbing her fear this time, but projecting a calming, golden energy around her. A shield of confidence. She took a deep breath, her aura steadying, the silver and blue flaring to life. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." She walked onto the small, forgotten stage. There were maybe 50 people there, mostly milling about, waiting for the main act. She sat at her keyboard, closed her eyes, and began to play. She didn't start with a ballad. She started with a song of pure, defiant power. A song we had worked on, one that Julian had told her was too aggressive. Her voice, amplified by the festival speakers, soared over the grounds. It was a clarion call. It cut through the mindless thumping of the pop music from the main stage. People stopped. Heads turned. The crowd of 50 started to swell. People were leaving the main stage, drawn by this incredible, magnetic sound. I stood in the growing crowd, watching. I focused my essence manipulation on a grander scale. I subtly tweaked the acoustics of the area, bending the sound waves, ensuring her voice carried with perfect clarity, drowning out everything else. By the end of her first song, the area around her small stage was packed. Thousands of people stood in rapt silence. The vapid pop starlet on the main stage was now performing to a rapidly emptying field. I could see the panicked, ugly green auras of the event organizers. I could feel the fury of Mark's family, wherever they were watching. Serafina played her heart out. She poured every ounce of her soul into her music. By the end of her set, she was crying, not from sadness, but from catharsis. The applause was deafening. It was a roar of genuine, heartfelt adoration. The next day, she was a sensation. Videos of her performance went viral. #Angel Voice was trending worldwide. Our lawsuit against Julian Croft became a public spectacle. We released evidence of his sabotage, recordings of him belittling her. He was ruined, a pariah in the industry. Starlight Records, now flush with my backing, signed her to a massive contract. Her debut album, which we titled Uncaged, went platinum in a week. One night, after a sold-out concert, I was with her in her dressing room. She was glowing, her aura a supernova of happy, brilliant silver. "I still feel like I'm dreaming," she said, looking at her reflection in the mirror. "This is real, Serafina," I said, standing behind her. "This is who you were always meant to be." She turned and wrapped her arms around my neck. "Thank you, Leo," she whispered into my chest. "You gave me back my voice." "I just gave it a microphone," I replied. She looked up at me, her eyes shining. You are my muse, my guardian, my producer, you're my everything. Her kiss was soft, grateful, and full of the same melody as her songs. It was a harmony of souls. I now had a queen of intellect, a queen of combat, and a queen of the arts. Clara, Alara, and Serafina. They were not a harem. They were my allies, my partners, my counsel. Each one was a titan in her own right, rescued from the oppressive shadow of Mark's world and now poised to help me tear it down. The stage was set for the final act. It was time to go after Mark himself. The trifecta of my success with Clara, Alara, and Serafina had systematically eroded Mark's empire and social standing. Nexus Innovations dominated the tech sector, costing his family a fortune. Iron Fist Academy became the new mecca for martial arts, making his tough guy persona a joke. Serafina's meteoric rise in music had made his family's media group look foolish and corrupt. Mark was cornered. I could feel his aura from across the city, a chaotic, sputtering mess of angry red and fearful, sickly yellow. A cornered animal is a dangerous one, but a cornered narcissist is predictable. He would do something rash, something stupid, to try and reclaim his sense of dominance. I was counting on it. My revenge was not complete. I had taken his props away, but I hadn't yet faced him directly. I hadn't yet taken from him what he had taken from me, his dignity. The opportunity came, as I knew it would, through Mia. I had been passively monitoring her aura through social media. It was a shallow, flickering thing, constantly shifting between the greedy brown of materialism and the anxious green of social climbing. As Mark's fortunes dwindled, the anxiety in her aura grew stronger. She was a parasite, and her host was getting sick. One evening, I was at a high-profile charity gala. It was the kind of event I now frequented, not for the pleasure of it, but for the networking and information. Clara was on my arm, looking stunning in a sapphire dress, her brilliant aura a beacon of intellect and class. Alara was there too, acting as my head of security, her fiery orange aura contained beneath a sleek, black dress, her eyes missing nothing. Serafina was scheduled to perform, the guest of honor, her silver aura filling the grand ballroom with a calm, melodic presence. We were a force, a quiet storm of power. And then, I saw them. Mark and Mia, across the room. They looked diminished. Mark's expensive suit seemed ill-fitting on his tense frame. His aura, which had once been a blazing, arrogant gold, was now that ugly, sputtering mess I had sensed. Mia was clinging to his arm, her smile plastered on, but her aura was a frantic, desperate shade of brown-green. She was trying to project an image of wealth and happiness that was crumbling in real time. Our eyes met across the ballroom. Mark's face tightened with hatred. Mia's eyes widened, a complex storm of shock, envy, and disbelief swirling in their depths. She saw me. Not the pathetic, broken boy from the sidewalk, but a man exuding confidence and power. She saw the brilliant, beautiful woman on my arm. She saw the deference and respect I was given by the city's elite. I could see the regret in her aura, a bitter, gray wisp that she quickly suppressed. It wasn't regret for hurting me, it was regret for backing the wrong horse. I gave them a slow, deliberate nod, a gesture of dismissal, before turning my attention back to Clara. It was a small cut, but I knew it would fester. Later that evening, Mark, fueled by alcohol and wounded pride, did exactly what I expected. He confronted me. He cornered me near the terrace, away from the main crowd. Mia hovered a few feet behind him, a nervous shadow. "Leo," he sneered, his voice a low growl. His breath smelled of expensive liquor. "Look at you. Playing dress up with the big boys." I turned to face him, my expression one of calm indifference. Alara took a half-step forward, but I gave her a subtle hand signal to stand down. "This was mine." "Mark," I said, my voice even. "You seem stressed. Are falling stock prices keeping you up at night?" His face flushed with anger. "You think you're clever, don't you? Hiding behind these women. You got lucky." "Luck is the residue of design," I replied coolly. "Something you wouldn't understand. You've only ever known inherited privilege. You've never built a thing in your life. You only know how to break them." My words hit their mark. I saw his aura flare with raw fury. "I broke you," he snarled, stepping closer. "Remember that? On the sidewalk? Crying over melted ice cream. That's who you are." "I do remember," I said, my voice dropping, becoming as cold as the grave. I remember every word, every laugh, and I am grateful for it. You and Mia gave me the greatest gift of my life that night. You gave me clarity. I looked past him, my eyes landing on Mia. She flinched under my gaze. You taught me that some people are just hollow, I said, my voice carrying to her. They chase shiny things, blind to true value. A lesson I have since monetized. Mark couldn't take it anymore. His rage boiled over. He reverted to his base instinct, physical intimidation. He grabbed the front of my suit. You think you're better than me? You're still just trash. This was the moment. I didn't resist. I didn't flinch. I focused on my essence manipulation. I didn't just absorb the kinetic energy of his grip. I absorbed the energy behind it. His rage, his hatred, his fear. I drew the ugly, sputtering red and yellow from his aura into myself. The effect was instantaneous. From the outside, it looked like nothing happened. But for Mark, his entire emotional landscape was suddenly barren. The fire of his rage was gone, leaving only cold, confused ash. His grip loosened. The snarl on his face was replaced by a look of utter bewilderment. He felt hollowed out, empty. What's happening? He stammered, his voice losing its aggressive edge. This is the difference between us, Mark, I said softly, plucking his hands from my suit and smoothing the fabric. Your power is an illusion. It's loud, it's angry, and it's fragile. My power is quiet. It's absolute. I stepped closer, invading his space, just as he had done to me all those years ago. You're finished, I whispered, so only he could hear. Your family's company is on the verge of bankruptcy. Your social standing is a joke. Your friends are abandoning you. You have nothing left. He stared at me, his eyes wide with a dawning, soul-crushing terror. For the first time, he was seeing me not as his victim, but as the architect of his ruin. He stumbled backward, away from me, his aura a pathetic, flickering gray wisp. He bumped into a waiter, sending a tray of champagne glasses crashing to the floor. The sound drew everyone's attention. They saw Mark, disheveled and panicked. They saw me, calm and composed. They saw the powerful looking weak, and the once weak looking powerful. The narrative shifted in that instant. Mark, utterly humiliated, turned and fled the gala, pushing through the crowd. Mia stood frozen for a moment, her face a mask of horror and indecision. She looked at Mark's fleeing back, then at me. Her aura was a maelstrom of desperate calculation. She took a step toward me. Leo, she began, her voice trembling. I am so sorry. I was a fool. I made a terrible mistake. Her voice was sweet, pleading. The same voice she had used to charm half the school. But I could see her aura. It was laced with the brown of greed. She wasn't sorry. She was just trying to switch to the new winning horse. I held up a hand, stopping her. Save it, I said, my voice devoid of all emotion. I reached into my pocket and took out the necklace. The one I had dropped on the pavement. The one I had transformed with my own power. It glittered under the ballroom lights, the star pendant shining with the fire of a real diamond, the platinum chain glowing with an inner light. It was 1,000 times more beautiful than the day I bought it. Mia's eyes locked onto him. Her jaw dropped. She recognized it. I kept this, I said, to remind me of what true value looks like. And to remind me how easily it can be mistaken for trash by those with no vision. I didn't offer it to her. I simply held it for a moment, letting her see what she had thrown away. Then, I let it drop from my fingers. It fell to the marble floor with a soft, final clink. I turned my back on her, on the necklace, on the entire sordid memory. I walked back to Clara, took her hand, and led her to the dance floor as the orchestra began to play a new song. My revenge on Mark and Mia was complete. I hadn't just beaten them. I had made them irrelevant. Leaving Mia standing over the discarded necklace was not the end, but a turning point. The public humiliation at the gala was the final nail in Mark's social coffin. His world didn't just crack, it imploded. In the weeks that followed, I watched from a distance as the consequences cascaded. OmniCorp, unable to recover from the Nexus Innovations disruption and the weight of its own corruption, declared bankruptcy. Mark's family lost everything. Their mansions, their cars, their status, all gone. The news was filled with stories of their downfall, a modern-day tragedy for the city's elite to gossip about. I felt a quiet, grim satisfaction. The debt had been paid. But my life was no longer solely defined by that debt. I had Clara, Alara, and Serafina. My relationships with them deepened, evolving beyond the circumstances of our meeting. Clara was my intellectual equal, my partner in building a new world. Our nights were spent less in boardrooms and more in quiet conversation, dreaming up new technologies that could genuinely help people, not just make us richer. We founded a philanthropic wing of Nexus, dedicated to funding education in science and technology for underprivileged youth. Alara was my anchor, the one who kept me grounded. We trained together not as fighter and powerhouse, but as partners. She taught me discipline, and I taught her to see the boundless potential within herself. We expanded the Iron Fist Academy, creating community outreach programs to teach self-defense and discipline to kids in rough neighborhoods. Her fiery aura was no longer just about combat, it was about protection and empowerment. Serafina was my soul's confidant. Her music became the soundtrack to our new lives. With her fame, she became a powerful advocate for artist rights and mental health awareness in the creative industries. She started a foundation, funded by my resources, to support struggling artists who, like her, had been exploited. Her beautiful aura now had a powerful, healing resonance that touched millions. We were a strange, powerful family. We worked together, lived together in a large, modern penthouse I had acquired. A space with separate wings for each of us, but a shared central living area where we would converge. Our bond wasn't a secret, but it was private. To the world, we were business partners and close friends. A tech mogul, a martial arts master, and a music icon, all inexplicably linked to the enigmatic Leo. The actions I took with them were not about lust, but about connection. With Clara, it was the thrill of a shared breakthrough, a quiet kiss over a whiteboard filled with world-changing equations. With Alara, it was the intensity of a spar ending in a laughing heap on the mat, the line between combat and embrace blurring into nothing. With Serafina, it was listening to her compose a new melody inspired by our journey, her head resting on my shoulder, our hands intertwined on the piano keys. It was safe, it was intimate, and it was more fulfilling than any shallow conquest. One afternoon, I was meditating on the penthouse balcony, overlooking the city that was now, in many ways, mine. I was practicing my essence manipulation, learning to feel the subtle flows of life and energy throughout the metropolis. I felt a familiar, mischievous spike of energy behind me. I opened my eyes and turned. Nezha was sitting on the railing, casually swinging his legs, looking exactly as he had the day we met, right down to the red hoodie. He was munching on a bag of potato chips. "Not bad," he said, gesturing at the city with a chip. "You took the tools I gave you and you actually built something. I'm impressed. Most mortals just make a huge mess." "Nezha," I said, a genuine smile on my face. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "Just checking in on my investment," he said with a crunch. "Your aura has changed. The gold of the dragon vein is still there, but it's deeper now. It's mixed with the blue of intellect, the orange of fighting spirit, and the silver of music. It's also got this warm, golden pinkish glow. You're content. Disgustingly so." He hopped off the railing. The revenge part was fun to watch, I'll admit. Very dramatic. Especially the necklace drop. A bit cliché, but effective. It felt necessary at the time, I admitted. "But what now, Dragon Boy?" he asked, his ancient eyes pinning me. "You've won. You have the power, the wealth, the women. Are you just going to sit up here and get fat and happy?" It was a good question. One I had been asking myself. The drive for revenge had been a powerful engine. Now that it was gone, what would propel me forward? "I don't know," I said honestly. "Good. I don't know is more interesting than, I have a 10-step plan," Nezha said. "But let me give you a little warning. The power you wield, the dragon vein, it's not just a battery. It's a key." My senses tingled. "A key to what?" "The world is bigger than you think, Leo," he said, his voice losing its playful edge. "There are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy, and all that. You've been playing in the mortal sandbox. But the energy you command, it sends out ripples. And ripples attract attention." My aura perception, which I had thought was all-seeing, suddenly felt limited. Nezha gestured vaguely at the sky. "There are others. Gods. Demons. Ancient entities. Things that swim in the currents of magic and power you're now a part of. Some are like me, curious observers. Others are hungry. A cold feeling, one I hadn't felt in a long time, touched my heart. It wasn't fear for myself, but for Clara, Olara, and Serafina. Are you saying we're in danger? I asked. I'm saying your story isn't over, Nezha corrected me. Your revenge plot was just the prologue. The real game is about to begin. The divine dragon vein marks you as a player. Whether you become a king or a pawn is up to you. He started to shimmer, preparing to depart. Wait, I said. What should I do? Nezha grinned. Get stronger. Your power is immense, but you use it like a club. You need to learn to wield it like a scalpel. Explore what the dragon vein can truly do. And protect what you've built. He tossed the empty chip bag into a nearby trash can, a perfect shot. Oh, and one more thing, he said, his form fading. Try not to die. The paperwork is a nightmare. And he was gone. I stood on the balcony, the setting sun casting long shadows across the city. The peace and contentment I had felt just moments before was now replaced by a new, sharper sense of purpose. Nezha was right. My revenge was just the beginning. It had forged me, tested me, and given me a reason to become powerful. But it was a fundamentally selfish goal. Now, I had something to protect. My friends. My partners. My family. The empire we had built, an empire dedicated not to greed, but to fostering talent and creating value. My power wasn't just a tool for retribution anymore. It had to become a shield. I closed my eyes and reached inward, deeper into the golden energy of the dragon vein. For the first time, I didn't just command it. I communed with it. I felt its ancient, draconic consciousness, a vast and primal force sleeping within me. And I felt it respond to my will, my desire to protect. The golden energy swirled, condensed, and began to change, preparing for a new kind of war. The world was bigger and more dangerous than I knew. But they would find out that a dragon, once awoken, does not go back to sleep. And this dragon was no longer alone. Nezha's warning lingered in the air long after he was gone, a chilling premonition that settled deep in my soul. The world was bigger than I knew. Others were coming. My focus shifted instantly. The passive satisfaction of my victory over Mark evaporated, replaced by a vigilant, protective urgency. My first step was to strengthen my own abilities. Nezha was right. I had been using a sledgehammer. It was time to learn surgery. I dedicated my nights not to business or leisure, but to intense training. I retreated to a secure, underground level of the Nexus Innovations Tower, a place I had built as a private lab. I pushed my dragon's might to new limits, not just by punching harder, but by learning to control the output of my strength with microscopic precision. I practiced assembling complex microcircuitry with my bare hands, the immense power in my fingers held in perfect check. I refined my essence manipulation. Instead of just absorbing energy, I learned to reshape it. I practiced pulling the ambient static electricity from the air and weaving it into a tangible, shimmering shield of golden lightning. I learned to draw the life energy from simple plants, not to harm them, but to borrow their vitality, heal a withered leaf, and return the energy, stronger than before. It was a delicate, intricate dance of give and take. My celestial aura perception also evolved. I learned to look deeper, beyond a person's immediate emotional state, to see the very structure of their soul, the history of their life etched in faint, energetic scars and triumphs. As I grew stronger, I began to sense them. Faint, alien energy signatures on the edge of my perception. They were like whispers in a hurricane, but they were there. Things that did not belong in the mundane world. My second step was to protect my queens. I couldn't tell them about gods and demons. Not yet. They would think I was insane. Instead, I used my power and resources to weave a web of protection around them. For Clara, I imbued the core servers of Nexus Innovations with a protective layer of my own energy. It acted as a sentient firewall, not just against digital threats, but against esoteric ones. Any hostile energy attempting to probe our systems would be met with a labyrinth of draconic power. I also gifted her a personal tablet, its internal chassis forged from an alloy I had secretly infused with my essence. It was a panic button that would alert me instantly if she was ever in true danger. For Olara, I went to the Iron Fist Academy. I spent a night meditating on the central mat, slowly and carefully infusing the entire dojo with a subtle protective ward. The ward wouldn't stop a physical intruder, but it would repel any entity with malevolent intent. It would feel unwelcoming, nauseating to them. I also gave her a set of custom-made training gauntlets. They looked normal, but the leather was tanned with solutions containing traces of my golden energy, making them incredibly durable and capable of delivering a subtle jolt of dispelling force on impact. For Serafina, I focused on her voice. Her talent was a beacon, and I needed to ensure it couldn't be used against her. I helped her design a unique microphone, its internal crystal grown in my lab and attuned to my own energy. It would only respond to her specific vocal frequency and aura. For anyone else, it was a dead piece of metal. It also contained a resonance field that would subtly disrupt any attempt at mystical or hypnotic suggestion directed at her while she performed. They accepted my gifts, seeing them as the eccentricities of a wealthy and slightly paranoid friend who loved to tinker. They had no idea they were now carrying artifacts of divine power. The first test came sooner than I expected. It wasn't a frontal assault. It was insidious. A new financial player appeared in the city. A man named Valerius. He was charismatic, handsome, and impossibly successful. He started a hedge fund that delivered returns that were, by all accounts, impossible. His aura was the strangest I had ever seen. It was a perfect, flawless mirror. It reflected whatever the viewer wanted to see. To the greedy, it shone with gold. To the ambitious, it blazed with power. But behind the mirror, I could sense a void. A cold, hungry emptiness. Valerius began to move in our circles. He praised Nexus Innovations. He made a massive donation to Alara's community outreach program. He tried to book Serafina for a private event, offering an astronomical sum. Clara was intrigued by his financial genius. Alara was grateful for the donation. Serafina was flattered by the offer. But I was wary. Using my enhanced perception, I analyzed the code of his company's financial software. It was flawless, but it was also wrong. The logic loops were unnatural. They didn't predict the market, they seemed to subtly influence it, bending probability in their favor. It was a form of magic. He was not just investing in companies, he was feeding on their success. His fund, a sophisticated siphon for draining prosperity and luck from the market into his own pocket. He was a greed demon. A parasite of a higher order than Julian Croft or Mark's family. He wanted what we had built. He wanted to feed on the pure, powerful success of Nexus, the fierce vitality of Iron Fist, and the soulful brilliance of Starlight Records. He invited the four of us to dinner at his opulent penthouse, an invitation we couldn't refuse without causing social ripples. The dinner was a calculated affair. Valerius was the perfect host, charming and attentive. He directed most of his attention to Clara, speaking her language of numbers and potential. "Your algorithm, Clara, is a thing of beauty," he said, his mirrored aura shining with intellectual admiration. "But you're thinking too small. Licensing deals? Philanthropy? Imagine what we could do if we applied its predictive power to global markets. We could reshape economies, end poverty." Clara, despite the protective ward on her tablet, was captivated. His words were tailored to her idealistic nature. I could see the faintest wisp of his influence trying to snake its way into her brilliant blue aura. I subtly pressed my foot against hers under the table, sending a tiny pulse of my golden energy through her. It was enough to clear her head, to break the spell. She blinked, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. "That's an interesting thought, Valerius. But our mission is in technological advancement, not financial manipulation." Valerius's smile didn't falter, but I saw a flicker of cold annoyance in the void behind his mirrored aura. He had failed to hook Clara. He then turned to me. "And you, Leo, the silent partner, the kingmaker, no one knows where you came from. You are a mystery. I admire that. I prefer to let my partner's success speak for itself," I said, my voice level. "A noble sentiment," he purred. "But all kings have a kingdom to protect. The world is changing. New powers are rising. A lone dragon cannot guard its hoard forever. An alliance would be profitable." It was a veiled threat and an offer. He knew what I was. He was proposing a partnership of predators. "My kingdom is not for sale," I said, my voice turning to ice. "And my hoard is not gold. It is talent. It is integrity. Concepts you wouldn't understand." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. The pleasantries were over. Valerius dropped the charming facade. The mirrored aura dissolved, revealing the cold, hungry void beneath. His eyes glowed with a faint, greedy light. "A pity," he hissed, his voice now a dry whisper. "I so dislike destroying beautiful things. But hunger, you see, is a necessity." Suddenly, the lights in the penthouse flickered and died. We were plunged into darkness. The darkness was absolute, a thick, unnatural black that swallowed all light. A wave of palpable fear washed over the room, an energy designed to paralyze mortals. Clara gasped. Alara was instantly on her feet, her body tensing into a combat stance. Serafina let out a small, frightened cry. But I was not afraid. In the dark, my other senses reigned supreme. I could see the energy in the room with perfect clarity. I saw the terrified, flickering auras of my friends. And I saw Valerius. He was no longer a man. He was a swirling vortex of shadow and avarice, a being of pure, hungry energy. "You have powerful friends, Dragon," the whispering voice echoed from the vortex. "Their potential is delicious. I will feast upon their dreams and leave you with the empty husks." Tendrils of shadow shot out from the vortex, aiming not at me, but at the women. One shot toward Clara, seeking to latch onto her mind and drain her intellect. Another shot toward Alara, aiming to sap her physical vitality. The third snaked toward Serafina, hoping to consume her artistic soul. This was the moment I had prepared for. "Now," I commanded, my voice infused with the dragon vein's power, resonating with an authority that cut through the fear. The artifacts I had given them activated. The tablet in Clara's purse flared with a brilliant blue light, projecting a shield of pure logic and data that repelled the shadow tendril. The gauntlets on Alara's forearms, which she had worn under her dress sleeves, pulsed with a fierce orange glow. She instinctively punched the incoming tendril, and the dispelling energy vaporized it on contact. The microphone-shaped pendant around Serafina's neck hummed with a silver, melodic frequency, creating a sonic barrier that shattered the shadow tendril into nothingness. The vortex recoiled, hissing in surprise and pain. "What is this? Your power, it protects them." "They are not my possessions," I declared, stepping forward as my own power surged to the surface. "They are my allies. And you are trespassing." Golden light exploded from my body, banishing the unnatural darkness and flooding the room with the radiance of a miniature sun. My skin shimmered with faint, golden scales. My eyes glowed like molten gold. The full might of the dragon vein was unleashed. Valerius, forced back into a semi-humanoid shape by my light, stared at me with hatred. "You cannot defeat me. I am a concept. I am greed. As long as mortals desire, I will exist. Then you can exist somewhere else," I snarled. I didn't attack him physically. He was a being of energy. I had to fight him on his own terms. I opened my senses, my very soul, to the city below. I felt the web of commerce, the flow of capital, the hopes and fears of millions tied to their finances. And I saw Valerius's tendrils, invisibly threaded throughout the entire system, siphoning its energy. I became an anchor. I poured my own divine energy into the city's grid, not the electrical one, but the metaphysical one. I sent out a pulse of pure, unadulterated generosity. A wave of contentment. It was the antithesis of his power. My golden energy flowed through the invisible network, severing his connections one by one. On the stock market floor, traders would suddenly feel a moment of calm, a lack of desire to make a risky trade. In boardrooms, CEOs would pause, reconsidering a hostile takeover. All across the city, the frantic, hungry edge of financial greed was momentarily blunted by my power. Valerius screamed, clutching his head. His power source was being cut off. "What are you doing?" he shrieked. "You're disrupting the system. The glorious, beautiful system of wanting more." "I'm rebooting it," I said, my voice calm and steady as I focused the entire weight of my will against him. I then did the one thing a creature of greed could never comprehend. I gave my energy freely. I didn't try to destroy him. I overwhelmed him. I projected a torrent of golden, draconic power directly at him, not an attack, but a gift. An offering of limitless energy, far more than he could ever hope to siphon or consume. It was like trying to drink from a fire hose. His form flickered violently, unable to process the sheer volume of pure, untainted power. "No. Stop. It's too much." It's pure, he gurgled. He, a being defined by taking, could not handle being given so much. His form began to dissolve, overloaded and purified by the golden light. This isn't over, dragon, his voice whispered as he faded. The others will come. They are older, hungrier. And then he was gone. The golden light subsided. The normal lights of the penthouse flickered back on. The room was a mess, overturned furniture, shattered glass, but we were safe. Clara, Alara, and Serafina stared at me, their faces a mixture of terror, shock, and profound awe. The secret was out. Leo, Clara whispered, her scientific mind struggling to process what she had just seen. What are you? I looked at the three of them, my chosen family. It was time for the truth. It's a long story, I said, a weary but genuine smile on my face. It started with a tub of melted ice cream. I spent the rest of the night telling them everything. About Mia and Mark. About Nezha. About the divine dragon vein pearl. About my revenge, and about the warning of a larger, hidden world. They listened, their skepticism slowly giving way to belief as the pieces of my strange behavior, my impossible skills, and my eccentric gifts all clicked into place. When I was finished, there was a long silence. It was Alara who spoke first. She walked over, looked me in the eye, and punched me lightly on the shoulder. Gods and demons, huh? Sounds like we need to step up our training. Her fiery aura blazed with excitement, not fear. Serafina came and took my hand. So your power is a gift from a god, born from an act of kindness. That sounds like you, Leo. Her silver aura resonated with understanding and affection. Finally, Clara, the brilliant scientist, looked at me with an expression of wondrous curiosity. A divine energy source merged with a human host, granting metaphysical abilities we need to run some diagnostics. The applications are limitless. Her blue aura pulsed with 1,000 new theories. They weren't afraid. They weren't pushing me away. They were ready to face this new world with me. My revenge had given me power. But protecting them, my queens, my partners, had given me a purpose. We stood together on the balcony, looking out at the city lights, no longer just a tech mogul, a fighter, and a singer. We were a new pantheon in the making. The old world of Mark and Mia was a distant memory, a prologue to a far grander, more dangerous, and more magnificent story. Valerius was just the first. Others would come. But let them come. I was no longer just Leo, the boy with a broken heart. I was the divine dragon. And this was my horde. I would protect it, and anyone who threatened it would burn.